Is that role right for you? What are the benefits? What are the disadvantages? Well, let's talk about it. Let me just get started with my own traditional journey. Or shall I say, let me get started with my own homemaking journey. I got married in 1972 at the age of 20. I turned 21 a few months later. And then at that particular time, I was a junior in college and I graduated a year or so later. But also, like I said, I was 21 when I got married, or rather 20 when I got married, and then turned 21 a few months later. At that particular time, most women got married right out of high school. It's like people were already engaged or got engaged soon thereafter. They got married soon after high school. They had these elaborate weddings. Weddings were all in the newspaper, pictures, photos, all that kind of thing. If you went to college, then people jokingly said, I'm working for my MRS rather than your MA or MS or something like that, meaning your Mrs. So that was just those times in general. And as far as my wife history goes, as I said, I started out, got married at the age of 20. I was a college junior, pregnant, and I had twins shortly thereafter. So I started out as a stay-at-home wife and mother, and I was a full-time college student. So that's where I was then. And we had the cutest little apartment on the hilltop in Bloomington, Indiana. And so I was learning to be a wife and a mother there. We graduated college and then we set up housekeeping in the city where we currently live in Indiana. So my role as wife has changed over time. I started out as a stay-at-home wife and mother. Then I went to working part-time, put the kids in daycare, worked part-time. Then when they were old enough for school, I worked full-time. And then I became pregnant with the third child. So then I was home again, stayed home with that child for a while, started working part-time, and then full-time once he got old enough. And now I am full circle. I am home full-time. So it has been a journey. And I see several people that are joining me here. And I'm not going to say hello to folks just yet, but I do want to invite people to jump on. If you choose to come on and talk live, I can post the link and then you can come on. So as I said, my role as wife has changed over time. So now, in case you're wondering why I'm having this discussion today, there has been quite a bit of talk on YouTube and TikTok about traditional wives or trad wives, as they are also known. And a lot of the conversation has been negative. So getting a lot of attention, but not necessarily good attention. So let's get into that. Let's talk about, first of all, what a traditional wife or a trad wife is. So when we talk about and I got notes all over the place. So if you see me looking down, I'm trying to look at my notes and stuff like that because I did want to be prepared for tonight's discussion. So if we look at what a traditional wife is, the meaning of a traditional wife is one who is married and for the most part, they stay at home and their primary role is to take care of the home, the children, the husband, that kind of thing. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about what a traditional wife is. So let me ask you that are out there, what is your definition of a traditional wife? How do you see that? What's your definition of a traditional wife? Let's put that in the chat, and then I'll come over and see who's here and see what people are saying. But one of the things that I do know is that right now there is a trend that more women are choosing to become stay-at-home homemakers. They're choosing to be a housewife, a traditional wife, and stay home. and raise the family, take care of the home, and care for the husband. More and more women are making that decision. Now, what has been some of the negativity that I've seen on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok? Well, the negativity has come from the perspective that what happens if the marriage doesn't last? That's the question. What happens if the marriage doesn't last? And I will have to say, this is not a new question. This is not a new situation. And some of the negativity that I've seen, particularly on TikTok, has been from women who did get married and did become a traditional wife, stay-at-home wife and mother, caring for the house, the home, the family, that kind of thing. And then the marriage broke up. And then when the marriage broke up, they found themselves scrambling. No home, no money, no support, just really scrambling and at a loss. But what I must say is that this is not new. This has been going on for day one, that people get married, and then after so many years, there have been times when one party or the other, typically it's been the husband, has decided they want to change. They want a younger model, and they're no longer in love with their wife. And so they leave their wife, marry a younger model. Now you've got this woman who's been married all these years and her life has revolved around this man, this home, this family. Now, what is she supposed to do? That's the question. And so that's the negativity that's been going on out there. The women that have been left behind have been sharing their stories. It was really interesting. I was looking at one TikTok, and the woman had said that, I believe she said she was a Mormon, and she got married somewhere between 18 and 20, and then she decided to start a business, and she started a business, and the leader of their church or their sect, or however it's described, said that, women don't own businesses. So she turned the business over to her husband, put everything in his name, that kind of thing. And when the marriage broke, so right now, what I want you guys to put in the chat is, what is your definition of a traditional wife? Let's have that first. And then we'll get into some of the discussion that people are beginning to have. But again, when we look at the traditional wife, we're looking at the traditional role of caring for the home, the children, and supporting the husband's career. And I'll never forget, when we moved into our first home, there was something wrong with the door, and we had to have a guy come out and repair the screen door. And I was a nurse, and but I was home at that time, and so I remember talking to the repairman, telling him that I was a nurse. I had just graduated and had moved back home, and that my husband had gone back to school to finish up, and he would be home shortly. And I remember him saying, "Well, I hope he doesn't leave you." And I'm like, excuse me? And then he proceeded to tell me that his daughter had put her husband through medical school. And then as soon as he graduated, he left her. Now, I've been married 52 years. So as I say, none of this is new. What is new is social media. On social media, we can pull up a TikTok, a YouTube, or an Instagram video, and we see these women's stories, and we also can see their pain. And then it makes us think about our own lives. Like I said, though, these are not new stories to me. All along, I've heard of women who their partners, their husbands, decided to trade them in for a new model. And I remember when we left to go to college, that one of my friends who was going to go away to college with me, her dad divorced her mom and married a woman who was like just a year or two older than we were. So, I mean, he really went for a younger model. So this is not new. And whereas me and my friends all knew about it, and my parents, my mom and her friends were talking about it, we didn't have social media, so it wasn't blasted across YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. You might see a notice in the paper that so and so filed for divorce. And then maybe a year or so later, you might see a notice in the paper, so and so married so and so, or you heard it through the grapevine, you found out about it at church. Now it's much more relevant in social media, so we hear about that. So now let me go over and check the chat and we'll see what people are saying. And I'll say hello while I'm over there. So we've got Mamie's channel who is here, and Mamie's thanking me for sharing this topic. She said she's just celebrated her 33rd year of marriage, and I just came back from a cruise where my husband and I went on, and we were celebrating 52 years of marriage, and people were kind of surprised, like, what, 52 years? And that is very unusual today. Now, not as unusual with people my age, because you can see I got a lot of gray hair up here. However, today's marriages tend to break up before then. So Southern Girl says she thinks women are choosing to be stay-at-home moms because they just don't want to work. And I don't know if that's necessarily the real answer there. And Southern Girl, tell us your name. And I need to send a message to one of my sisters, because I told her that I was going to have this topic tonight and invited her to jump on if she would like to talk. And I did send her the link, but half the time she doesn't check her email. And so I want her to know that I did send that. And so she's able to jump on. So she says she thinks some women, they just don't want to work. Well, I know some women that their whole goal in life is to grow up, to become a wife, to be married, and their goal is to be a wife and mother. And there is nothing wrong with that. And in so many religions, so many cultures, that's what women are educated or trained to be. So I don't know if it's that they just don't want to work. However, I do agree with you that there are some women out there who doesn't want to work. And one of the trends that is going on right now is not that more women are choosing to be stay-at-home wives and mothers, but there's also stay-at-home girlfriends. Now, I found that to be interesting. I just happened to be looking at some of the news on the crawl on my cell phone, and I saw an article about this trend of stay-at-home girlfriends. I'm like, what the heck is a stay-at-home girlfriend? Isn't that the same thing as a mistress? You got somebody at home that's plain wifey, and they're not your wife, and they just live with you, and they're doing all the things that a wife would. And I found that interesting because Miss Midwest, who has a very large YouTube channel, and she's a traditional housewife, traditional homemaker, a trad wife, so to speak. And she talked about being a wife and that she enjoyed being a stay-at-home wife, and that their life has kind of gone in steps, that when she first got married, they didn't have as much disposable income as they have now. So when they first got married, they were very frugal, that kind of thing. And she mentioned in this particular video, don't do wifey things for men that are not your husband. And I thought about that. I thought that's a profound statement, but okay, let's go on. So we've got Duncan Party of Six. So Tam says her and her husband both worked until COVID. They became pregnant and had twins during COVID, and she's been a stay-at-home mom ever since, homeschooling the older two. And yes, Tam, I started out as a stay-at-home wife and mom because we had twins, and we were also college students. So we were like both juniors in college. And so I stayed at home with the babies, and he went to work, and he, went to school. And then once I finished school, well, he dropped out for a while there because it got to a point that, okay, we needed more money. So he dropped out while I finished school, and then he went back. And then I was working. And that was when the repairman said, well, I hope he didn't leave you, because at that point I was working and my husband was not. 52 years later, we're still together. But so Tam says she stumbled upon the life and traditional role and truly feels like she's where she's supposed to be. And I get that. So Mamie Channel says she started a Mamie Channel a few months ago, and she said she thinks her channel's a lot like mine. She's a traditional wife. Now, Mamie, my question for you is, have you always been a traditional wife, or have you, like me, there's been an evolution, there's been ebbs and flows, and as the life cycle has changed, my role as wife in the home has changed also. So daily posted positive affirmations. I like that title. Congratulations on 50 years. Thank you. I appreciate that. And yes, 52 years is a blessing. Now, I am not trying to say that they have been easy 52 years, because all of the years have not been easy. There have been some years I didn't know if I'd be married 52 more minutes or days or weeks, let alone 52 years. But it has been a process that we have worked through. So when we talk about traditional wives, and is it for you? Let's talk about some of the disadvantages that go along with becoming a traditional wife. And this is what the negativity on YouTube has been about. It's all been about, well, what happens if he leaves you? And like I said, that's not a new discussion. It's just out loud now because it's on social media. So what happens if he does leave you? And one of the biggest issues is that all of a sudden you've gone from a very stable financial situation to an unstable financial situation. Women tend to go, and their families tend to go into the poverty level when a divorce happens, whereas the man's income tends to go up. That's number one, is that the financial security is now gone, because as a traditional wife, the husband is typically the breadwinner. So he's bringing home all the finances, and the wife is utilizing those finances to maintain the family and the home and that kind of thing. So if we think about what's one of the problems that happens should things go south, it's that financial security is now gone. So, in addition to that, now that your financial security is gone, the other problem that comes about associated with that is that your sense of self, your sense of being, your sense of who you are has now changed. Excuse me. You've typically seen yourself as a wife and mother, as a homemaker, as a housewife. And now, because one party has made a decision that has affected your life and your family, you're no longer a wife. So now who are you? That's a question that many women have to answer. And so that's a problem. As a matter of fact, I just remembered there's one YouTuber that I love, that I followed for years, and they're getting a divorce. And it's the Jordan Page. I think that's her name, Jordan Page. They've got like 6 or 8 kids. She's a Mormon, and her YouTube channel has been huge for years. And she called her husband Bubba, I think. And I just saw recently, within the past year, that they're getting divorced. It's not something that she said she planned to talk a lot about, but she just did want to make that known. And I was like, what? And there's another YouTuber that I used to follow, and she was a stay-at-home mom, and I believe she still is. And her husband left her. They got a divorce, and it plays out on social media. So whereas when my mom's friends or my friends got divorced, it didn't play out on social media. So it wasn't like front and center for the world to see and know all about. So, and the other thing to think about too is that 35 to 40% of most marriages end in divorce. So that's a pretty daunting statistic. So it's like the cards are stacked against you right from the very beginning. So now let's see what we've got going on over in the chat right now. So Southern Girl, tell me your name. I know you've told me before, but I've forgotten. And she says, yes, because the woman hasn't made her own money. Well, here's the thing. When we become married, when we become one, the two become one. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is yours. So, whereas she's not out creating a stream of income herself, she is using the income that the husband provides to maintain the home. So now that a situation has occurred and there's a divorce, and now she's got to support herself, how is she going to do that? And here's a question. If she got married at a young age, like many of us do, at the age of 20 or 21, didn't pursue an education, doesn't have any work experience, now she's divorced and she's looking for a job, there's going to be a huge gap on her resume. So the question is, what kind of job is she going to be able to find? And she's certainly going to need to be looking for that. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, what about alimony? I don't know much about alimony. I just know that in some states are more likely to be very um, to give alimony and be very generous with alimony payments to the spouse, to the wife, than others. Some places you can get alimony for maybe 1 year, 5 years, I don't know, but that varies from state to state. It also varies depending upon the number of children you have. And I believe it also takes into consideration the kind of lifestyle you may or may not have had prior to the marriage, during the marriage, that kind of thing. All that all of that makes a big difference. So now let me come over here to um, daily positive affirmations. And daily, tell us your name. We like to know each other's names over here. She wants to know, did a shared faith play a critical role in sustaining your union? No. The critical role in sustaining our union was communication. The other piece was that we both wanted the union to continue. And I took a class when I was in college. It was my junior year. We had only been married a few months. And I took this class called Marriage and the Family. That class in itself was probably more responsible for maintaining my marriage, because one of the things that the professor talked about that so often gets in the way of maintaining a marriage is ego. And he said, and I believe it was a male instructor at the time, and he said, you have to make a decision as to what is more important, the preservation of the family unit or your sense of being right or ego. So many times I've thought about what is more important, the preservation of the family unit or me winning this point, that kind of thing. That has been very helpful. The other thing that has been helpful is that we both wanted the marriage to continue. So because we both wanted it, we were both open to going to marriage counseling. And marriage counseling takes more than 6 weeks. Now, I know a lot of times your insurance company only wants to pay for 6 or 8 weeks, but it can take a couple of years to help you get to a point as to where you need to be. But okay, so Christine, so Alyssa says, I love being a stay-at-home wife with our son. Oh, she made canned jam for the first time today. She thinks society is pressuring women to get as far away as they can because women had to fight for their rights. You know, Alyssa, let's unpack that. So first of all, let's talk about the canned jam. I love making jams and jellies and those kinds of things, and I encourage all my homemakers to learn how to do that. But I've seen a couple of YouTube videos that say we've been lied to, that kind of thing. They think that women need to get out of the home, get into the workplace, that kind of thing, because women had to fight for their rights. And that is true. Am I a feminist? Yes, absolutely. And my sister says, don't say you're a feminist. That's got a negative connotation. But here's the thing, I grew up in the day when women didn't get paid the same amount that men got paid. Even though we were doing the same job, they paid men more than they paid women. So I believe in equal pay for equal work. And I grew up in the day when I got married, it's like all of a sudden I'm no longer Denise Jordan. I am Mrs. Willie Jordan. It's like I am Mrs. So and so Jordan. And if I wanted a credit card, my husband got the credit card and I was a tag along on his credit card. I couldn't get my own credit card. And when I wanted to buy a car, my husband had to co-sign. So now this was back in the day. Today, you women don't have that problem. But I remember those days. My birthday was Monday. I turned 73 on Monday. I got a couple of birthday gifts I'm going to show you in a little while. But I turned 73 on Monday, and I remember those times. And I'm sure my mom and my grandparents, their times was even more different than that. Now, as far as loving being a stay-at-home wife, oh, I get it. I love being a stay-at-home wife right now. I've come full circle. I love having the time to take care of my husband, to take care of my home, to do the things that I feel like I need to do and that I should do as a wife. I love that. But I've not always felt that way. And I'll tell you why. I remember once I was home and it was like a Saturday or something like that. And I my husband had gone, I'm not sure where he was. He had either gone out to play ball with friends, he might have been out fishing, but whatever it was, he was gone most of the day. And I just decided I'm gonna relax today. And I just didn't clean the house or anything like that. And I remember he came home and he looked around and he's like, well, what did you do all day? I said, the same thing you did. I took the day off. So, we've had those kinds of things. And I try not to share those kinds of things on my channel because I don't want to influence young wives with negative ideas. But that was a conversation we had. And I remember once I was doing laundry and I was ironing his shirts. And all of a sudden I thought, wait, why am I ironing his shirts? I walk out the house every morning to go to work just like he does. And he can iron his own shirts. And I stopped ironing his shirts at that time. I said, from now on, your shirts need ironing. You have to do that. He knew how to iron. His mom had taught him how to do that. When we went away to college, he did his own laundry. He ironed his own clothes. So when we got married, I believed that I should take over doing those things because those were the things my mom did for my dad. And we ironed everything. We ironed his boxer shorts, his t-shirts, we ironed sheets, we ironed everything. And it wasn't something that I necessarily enjoyed. So when you say that society is pressuring women to get as far as they can from the home, women have had to fight for various rights and even voting rights. Women have had to fight for those. And we've kind of fought those battles and won those battles. However, today you have the choice, stay at home or not stay at home. That choice is between you and your husband, not between you and your mom, you and your girlfriend, you and your friends. The choice as to whether or not you are a stay-at-home wife or whether or not you work part-time or full-time is between you and your husband because no one else is putting money on your table or meeting you at the bank. So that's a decision that the two of you make, and then the two of you live with that decision. It doesn't matter what other people think. So there's that. So Mamie says she's always worked and contributed to the living. They worked together to make their marriage a success, and now she's working on her own business adventures. And that's what so often happens today. Many times the man and the woman, they work together on various business adventures. And then once the children are older, maybe they're out of the house or they're in school and they're a little older, then the wife can start to create some business opportunities for herself, either working from home, working outside the home, creating a business or whatever. But so often that can happen. So it is definitely a choice that the two of you make together. So I think in one of the comments, though, someone said, well, the woman didn't have her own money. Well, if she's being a stay-at-home mom, then no, she doesn't. And I saw some information a few years ago that if they had to pay a woman for what she was worth, for all the things that she did at home, it would be quite a hefty salary. If you think about the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, childcare, making the meals, managing the home, doing all those things, not to mention the other activities that go along with being wife, it would be quite a hefty salary. So there's that. So I guess the thing to think about is how can you protect yourself? Because as I said, the husband leaving the wife for a younger model is not new. What can you do to protect yourself? And when I was looking at this one YouTube video, this woman mentioned something that I had not heard of before. And it was something called a slat. And I'm going to put it here in the chat. And it's a spousal. Let me find my little note here. It is a spousal lifetime access trust. So spousal. That's what it is. A spousal access lifetime trust, a SLAT. And what it is it is a trust account that has been set up to benefit the wife, and only that one spouse benefits from it. But it's the partner that's working creates this account for the wife that is not working, or the partner that's not working. It can also benefit other family members like children or grandchildren, but the primary goal of the SLAT is to remove assets from the grantor's taxable estate. So let's say a SLAT was set up by my husband for me, it removes taxable assets from his estate and puts them over into mine so that we're paying less taxes on it, that kind of thing. But then it also provides an income for me should something happen and the marriage should dissolve. It's also irrevocable. So once it's set up, it can't be revoked. And whereas the beneficiary spouse can receive distributions from the trust to help maintain their standard of living as they move along. So you can use it for tax purposes to kind of get out from under some tax, that kind of thing. But it's also a way to provide for that person who's not working. And I don't think that's something that many of us have thought about or knew about, because I certainly didn't know about that. And if you ask yourself, how can you protect yourself? Because, like, what should we as women do to protect ourselves? Is, well, you need to have some kind of an income or some kind of a savings that you set aside, that you and the husband together talk about it and set it aside. There is this one, well, I won't go into all those negative examples, but there are just things that happen. And so you do need to be able to protect yourself. And here is the other thing. What impact does the dissolution of the marriage have, not just on the spouse, the partner that is being left behind, but what impact does it have on the children? When you think about, as a traditional housewife and you're home with the family, that is what your children see as what is normal. And then when something happens to shake up that situation, how does that affect them? Sometimes you see problems at school and that kind of thing. So those are some things that I wanted us to kind of talk about and just think about. Now, if you're just joining us, I'm Denise Jordan, and this is our bi-weekly show, Homemaking with Purpose, where we bring to you the best ideas, information on homemaking. And then today's episode of Homemaking is Purpose is brought to you by my online apron boutique, Apron Diva. And pretty and practical. We believe that an apron can be a homemaker's best accessory. So here's some of our summer pieces right here. You can see we've sold out of quite a few. And then our elegant summer collection. We're going to be having our Christmas in July sale to start tomorrow. And when we have that, we're going to have 25% off for your final purchase because, of course, it's July 25th. So it's exactly 6 months till Christmas. So check us out at www.aprondiva.com. Okay, let me check out the notes to see what else that I need to get into. Okay, so what are some of the role models that you see that influence your decision regarding whether or not you wanted to be a stay-at-home wife or one who wanted to work outside of the home? What has been some of the role models or what have been some of the influences that have helped you to make that decision? I know for myself, the times that I was a stay-at-home wife, it was just that I was tired and that there was things that I needed to do at home that when I worked outside the home and inside the home, I was exhausted all the time because you essentially had two jobs. Being a housewife is a full-time job by itself. Whether you work outside the home or inside the home, that is one job that is full-time. Add a part-time job or a full-time job on top of that. Now you're working two jobs, and it can be very stressful. So there are some things there to think about. The other question is, how can traditional wives get personal fulfillment outside of their roles, or rather in their roles outside of the household? That's something to think about. So you can be fulfilled inside the home, but sometimes maybe you need another outlet. You need something just a little bit more. So how can you do that? So Tam says, if applicable, set aside so much money each month in a separate account. She trusts and prays that her marriage is forever, but she does put away a certain amount of savings each month and keeps her license current. And that is one of the things that, if you look at the research or if you look at the information regarding what you should do to protect yourself, that is one of the biggest things that is suggested, is that you put aside a savings account for yourself right from the very beginning, from when you first get married, not thinking, oh, well, this marriage is probably not going to last, so I'm going to save up my divorce money. No, 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 no. That is not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is, you have to have a backup plan. Again, it might not just be that your husband left you. It could be that your husband dies at an early age, and then you're going to have to sort out some things as well. So setting aside a little money in a separate account that you don't draw on, but you just have it there that you build upon is a good thing to do. The other consideration is to get an education. So often that when the woman decides to get married, she drops out of school, she forgoes her education, doesn't keep her job skills current, so that should something happen, then she's at a disadvantage because she doesn't have a current education and not current job skills. So that's something to think about. I was trying to see what time it was. We've been on a little bit longer than I thought. So, what are some of the essential qualities or the essential roles that you see that a traditional housewife needs to have? That's a good question. What are some traditional qualities that a housewife needs to have? I think they need to be organized. Um, they need to be good leaders in the home. I think they need to be good managers of not only themselves, but their children. And they also need to make sure that they're engaged in self care for themselves so that they have a lot to bring to the family. So if your cup is full, then you've got something to offer someone else. If your cup is depleted, then you don't have much to give. Okay, where are we? Let's see. So let's back up for a second and talk about that feminist comment that I had earlier. So some people believe that the feminists argue that the traditional wife movement emphasizes the patriarchal structure of the man being in charge and the woman doing everything they say, and that it limits women's potential and undermines decade of progress toward greater equality. The counter argument, though, is that traditional wives claim their choice is a form of empowerment, exercising their right to choose their preferred lifestyle. And I have to agree with that. And one thing that so often we as women do is that we will denigrate women for making choices that we disagree with. So when I say I'm a feminist, I say I'm a feminist because I've gone through some things, I've grown through some things, I've evolved through some things. So I've seen some things in the world that you younger women have not seen. That's why I have some of the beliefs that I have. And certainly, I'm one of those who tended to rail against the patriarchal society just because of the way of the things that I had to live through and the way that I grew up. However, today's women have the choice to make a decision to be a traditional housewife, stay at home mom, or to go out and work part time, full time, work from home, whatever. It's a decision that the two make together. Now, there are some religious beliefs that do influence that. And then there are some financial reasons that influence that as well. So the question is that if religious beliefs influence that, I don't think it has been a deterrent, though, on divorce. So Alyssa is saying kind, compassionate, and firm. Those are the qualities that she believes that a housewife, a traditional housewife, needs to have. And you know what, Alyssa? Not just a traditional housewife, but that housewife who has to go out, I mean, that homemaker who has to go out and go to work still needs to have those same qualities. And I'll tell you what, when I give my definition of homemaker, I will say in a minute, it is not 1950 anymore. So as far as being a homemaker, it could be you. It could be you and your boo. It could be you and a family, like a single mom with a family. It could be a married couple with a family, or it could be a young person just moved out into their apartment for the first time and they're setting up homemaking. Those are all homemakers. I don't think we can just co-opt the term homemaker for someone who is a stay-at-home wife or stay-at-home mom because we are all making homes for ourselves in different ways. And we all need to be kind, compassionate, and firm. We all need to be good managers of our resources. We all need to practice self-care. Now, those that are working outside the home with families have to be much more organized because they're doing double duty. They're doing the job that the stay at home wife is doing, plus they're doing an additional job as well. So there's that. So I guess some of the big controversy regarding the traditional wife movement today is that it's risky. And considering that 35% of the marriages in the United States and about that same give or take a percentage point or two in other cultures, other countries, is about the same thing. It is risky because what happens should the marriage break up? Becoming a single income household requires more financial planning and more budgeting. So, yeah, those are issues to think about. So, as far as the movement for becoming more women becoming stay at home wives, I'm all for it if that's a decision that the two make together. But I wouldn't say don't drop out of school to pursue that dream. I say continue with your education so that you've got something to fall back on should you need it. I think that's a good example, not only for yourself, but for any children that you may have. And then also think about the spousal um, trust, being able to set aside some money for yourself so that should things go south, you're prepared to be able to care for yourself and your family. The one TikTok video that I was looking at, the woman was saying how she never thought she would get to a point that she wouldn't be able to afford food, bread and milk for her children. She said, I didn't realize when I got married that my ability to support my family would depend upon whether or not my husband still found me attractive, still fell in love with me, or decided to trade me in for a younger model. And that's not something we plan on, but it's certainly something that as women we need to consider. So, okay, so if you're just joining us again, I'm Denise Jordan, your host, and this is our bi-weekly show, Homemaking with Purpose. And we're getting into the topic of traditional wife or trad wife and whether or not that role is for you. And one of the things we've been talking about is what happens if the marriage should dissolve and now this is the role you've occupied. So now what are you going to do? What do you have to figure out? And I'm not trying to be negative, but facts are facts. And it's you have to have a backup plan. And the one video that I was looking at, she said a man is not a backup plan. And I thought, well, you know what, that is true too. You have to be able to do some things for yourself. And so there we are with that. Okay. So, what questions or comments do you guys have out there? We've been on for a little over 45 minutes, and I really didn't think we would have this long a discussion. So, what are your thoughts in regards to that? Let me hear from you guys in the chat. Give me your personal views on what being a traditional wife means to you and what you think that women should do to protect themselves if they're in that role. And here's the other thing, even if you're not a traditional wife, but you're a wife that you work outside the home and you and your husband, you both work, you both bring your income in to support the family. Well, that marriage can blow up just as easily as the woman who's living a traditional uh, life. And now you've gone from two incomes to one. That's still a problem. Now, all of a sudden, you have to figure out how to support your family on one income instead of two, how to pay for childcare on one income instead of two. So, yeah. So, there's that to think about. So, as I said earlier, there has been somewhat of a resurgence to women once again choosing the traditional homemaker role to become a traditional wife. But hopefully they're being more savvy about some supports to put in place to protect them. And whereas so often the men will want a prenup or prenuptial agreement to protect their assets, I think women need to be more savvy regarding a prenup agreement so that they can protect themselves and their future children. So Tina says physically, it might look like the man is supporting his wife, but in all reality, it is God taking care of the wife. God will always provide for his children. And yes, Tina, you are right. God does provide, but sometimes the provision is not necessarily what we would hope for it to be. So there's that. Sometimes it's not necessarily what we would hope for it to be. Boom. So Christine, you hit the nail on the head right there. She said, can we put a different spin on this? We've chosen our paths, but what are we telling our daughters? My mom encouraged me to be independent and to be able to take care of myself. So I was always somewhat independent. I always had my career. If things didn't go well, I knew that I could support myself now and my children. Now, going from one income or from two incomes to one, it would be difficult, but I knew we would be able to, I'd be able to provide a place to live and I'd be able to put food on the table. So I always had my career, my education, so that I could support the family. That is what I told my daughter as well, to be able to support yourself. And you know, Tina, there's that song, God blesses the child who's got his own. You know, you need to be able to provide some things for yourself so that should things go south, you're able to do what you need to do to support your family, because ultimately that is your role, to be able to provide for yourself and your family in case your partner is no longer there. So I encourage my daughter to be independent to a certain degree, but that marriage was something to look forward to have a partnership with someone that the two of you can go through life together, raise a family, and then also grow old together. That's what I believe, is that we start out when it's just the two of you in your early 20s. And then when you get into your 70s or your 80s, it's like there's the two of you again, it's come full circle and you're still there to support one another. So that's what I'm telling my daughters, and my daughter's sharing the same thing with her daughter. And I think that um, so many of the fathers today are encouraging their daughters to be independent because they see a lot. They see a lot. Any other thoughts out there? Oh, you know what? And daily positive affirmations. Tell me your name. But is discussing strategy for divorce in premarital counseling a bad omen rather than practical or realistic? That's a tough question. And here's the thing, you don't want to go into a marriage thinking, well, it's going to break up or whatever. And I personally believe that today's generation is what we consider a disposable generation. They tend to think of relationships and things as being more disposable than, say, my generation did. So I think just not necessarily discussing strategy for divorce in premarital counseling, but maybe you could put a different spin on it, such as discussing financial resources for both parties, um, insurances for both parties as part of the premarital counseling, to talk about whatever the values and beliefs are, and then what kind of financial supports need to be put in place to affect the security of both parties. And because then that way you don't have one party saying, well, I'm the one that makes all the money, so you do what I say. That's what can sometimes happen. So I think during premarital counseling, when the two of them make that decision to do whatever it is they decide, I'm going to work and you're going to be home, we're both going to work until we have kids, and then you'll be home, whatever, there does need to be supports put in place. So just in case something happens 20 years from now, because who knows what's going to happen in 20 years? We don't. We can trust and believe that God's going to bring us through, trust and believe that our marriage is going to last. But we know the reality is that that does not always happen. Oh, daily positive affirmations. Her name is Hillary. You know, I've got another friend named Hillary that's on too. Her Hillary, though, has two L's. She's not on today because she's having some health challenges. So Tina says her first husband left her after 12 years with two young boys. She didn't know what she was going to do, but God knew and he provided for her and her boys. Tina, I am so glad that things worked out for you. That is not every woman's story. I am so glad that worked out for you, but that is not every woman's story. I know a woman that she had been married almost 20 years and her husband just decided he just didn't want to be married anymore. And he left the marriage. And that decision affected her life and that of her family because her goal in life was to be a wife and mother and to be a good wife and mother. But that wasn't what he craved later. Um, so Tina said she got a job at a Christian school and her boys got to go there and graduate. So that is good. Mamie says she's always been independent and had an income, but working together is the key to a long and healthy marriage. Yes, marriage is work. It is hard work. It is, you need to have great communication and you also have to have mutual respect for each one because if you don't, the party that feels demeaned then may seek to want to do other things to end the marriage or within the marriage. So yes, your communication has got to be good and then you've got to be willing to work at it. And you've got to make the decision that this marriage is worth working for, working towards, and working on, and then you can come through to the other side. But like I said, marital counseling is a must, but it's not going to necessarily get done in 6 weeks. So sometimes it takes longer than that. So, okay. I think, let's make sure I haven't left off any points. So again, traditional wives rely on their husbands for financial support, which can be risky in case of divorce or the husband's loss of income. And you know, sometimes the husband loses their job. So then the wife has to figure some things out as well. Do I need to go out and work or whatever? It just varies. It just varies. It can be a problem. Let me see if there's anything else that I'm missing. Oh, one of the statistics that I found that said divorce rates also had a lot to do with age at the time of marriage. As I mentioned earlier, when I got out of high school, it was the big thing then that many women got married right after high school or shortly thereafter. However, marrying at a younger age increases the likelihood of divorce. And then also marrying at a younger age also increases the dependence on the spouse in that regard. Higher education levels are generally associated with lower divorce rates. So there's that to think about, but then also culture and religious beliefs also have a huge impact upon whether or not marriages stay together or not. And then if we look at different countries and different cultures, the divorce rate is beginning to change based upon more modern influences. So let's see. Frugal Nista's here. Hey there. I haven't talked to you in a heck of a long time. So she said she's been a stay-at-home mom for both of her girls. And she said not wanting to work is the furthest thing from the truth. She says mothering is work and a full-time job. And you know what? I have to agree with you there. Mothering is work and being home full-time, you know, managing a house and children and family, it is hard work. It really is. So I certainly can agree with that point there. And I know of some women who want to work, but their husbands prefer they not work because they like for their wife to be at home and ready to be able to minister to their needs when they get home after a long, hard day, regardless of whatever it is they're doing. When they get home at the end of the day, they like having a family there to greet them and make them feel needed. So there's that. But yeah, mothering and is work and a full-time job at that. And if you're working outside the home, then you're doing double duty. So yeah, there's that. Uh, the other thing that is important when you're looking at being a traditional wife is insurance. You want to make sure that if your husband has insurance on the family and that you're carried on there so that you can get the health care that you need in regards to that. And make sure that you both are engaged in what's going on with the family finances. It should be full transparency so that you and he both know what's going on and you share that. All right. So I think those are the points that I wanted us to address. I wanted to talk about whether or not you felt that being a full-time wife is for you. So hey, Michelle, I was wondering where you were because you're always on. And she says she's in the pool watching on her phone. Jump in with your thoughts in regards to being a traditional housewife or working outside the home or whatever. I know right now you're a traditional housewife, but that you work from home, or whether you've worked inside the home. Blah, blah, blah. You have been a housewife and you've also worked outside the home, and now you're a housewife again. So, and that's a decision that you and your husband made. So Lynn says she's going on 50 years as a wife. She has her own savings, and at 74, she's considering getting her master's degree just in case something happens to him. She's very independent. I like it. I like it. And I certainly agree that you do need to have your own financial supports. Just kind of start putting a little aside when you first get married and just let that grow, or the two of you together talk with a financial planner and put some supports in place that are irrevocable so that you do have the supports that you need to care for your family. Should something happen to him, should he lose his job or whatever. All right. So if you're just joining us, again, I'm Denise Jordan, and today's episode of Homemaking with Purpose, we are talking about traditional wife and whether or not it's for you. And Michelle said she worked outside the home for the first 16 years because they needed the two incomes. And yes, there has been a time when the two incomes have been needed. And there were times when we needed the two incomes. Okay, so now I got some happy mail. So let me show you that. So you may remember I had a visitor on the show a couple of months ago. And it was Sophia Malakoff from Country Lux. And she was the lady that her and her husband had started oh my goodness, I can smell this already. Here's the card that came with it. Country Lux, and they have candles, and they have sent me a gift. Look at here, look at here, look at here. You guys know Blue Skies will love these colors because she loves this color blue. So when I open the box, there's a little box of matches in here. And then here's my candle in this nice little canvas bag. Sophia, thank you so much for sending me this. Oh, and look how pretty. This is the candle Country Lux. It's the melon and tonka oud, something like that. Oh, that's what's in it. It's called the Golden Sunrise. That's the fragrance. And oh, it smells so good. And look at the center of it. You can kind of see the kind of wick that it has. And then this is the lid that comes with it. And then on the bottom, it's got all the warning information and all of that. But like I said, oh, wait, there's something else in here. Oh, there's a wax melt. I've got a gift. This wax melt is Perfect Match is the name of this one. My daughter gave me a wax melt thing for Christmas. Mmm. This one makes me think of marshmallows. Oh, it smells so good. So I've got this beautiful candle and it smells so good. We hope you enjoy your products as much as we enjoy creating them. Andrew and Sophia, they make these candles in their home. Avoid excessive burn time, no more than 4 hours is recommended. Burn on a stable, heat-resistant surface. Never leave a candle burning unattended. Trim the wick to 1/4 inch tall before every burn to keep the wax clean and burning nicely. Allow candle to melt to the edge of the vessel. This prevents the future funneling and keep out of reach of pets and children. Oh, thank you, Sophia. I love this. Thank you so much. I appreciate this. I'm going to have to use that in one of my videos. And then I've got the wax melt that came with it and a set of matches so that I can actually light it. And I like the little bag that it comes in. So let me put it back in here. It's got these little peanuts that came with it. So now I got these little peanuts all over my desk, but I've been wanting to open it for the longest time, but I wanted to share it with you guys when I opened it up. Oh, and I got a little sticker. I like that too. I like stickers. And then a little card to tell me more about them. Oh yeah, okay. So there is that. And then, I told you my birthday was Monday. Look what I got. I got a Stanley Cup. Can you guys believe that? So my sisters went together and got me this Stanley Cup. So, and funny thing, she got one. Her girlfriend got her one for her birthday. And like her and her friend, they've been friends since like third grade. And so she got her a cute little Stanley Cup that was like this color. And I said, oh, you know what? I saw one online that was orange and it was so cute, not knowing that she was listening to what I was saying. And so they brought over a cute little gift bag and it had this cute little orange Stanley Cup. And then she also got me a straw topper to go with it. So let me just show you this. So these little straw toppers are really cute. So you can see right there, they fit around the straw, and then there's like a little opening right there. And so when you're out, say you're in public or whatever, and you got something sweet in there, you put this over the straw and it keeps insects or any kind of debris from getting in there. So I'm like, oh, I got a Stanley Cup. So I got to call my granddaughter and let her know I've got one. And then I've got something else that I got this bag full of goodies. And it came like this. And it's called Spousal or something like that. So it has this little spa brush in it. What is this? A washcloth, I think. I think it's a makeup washcloth. A shampoo bar. A body scrub. Oh, and it's lavender. I can't smell this one through there, but I did get this one out last night. I took a bath and just used it and smells really good. You can see it. It's like a little lavender scrub. I love body wash, that kind of stuff, body products. This is a bubble bath. And I love bubble baths too. And then this is lavender enriched shea butter hand cream. bath soap. Gosh. Shower gel. There's everything in here. And then there's two like bath bombs, a little scrubby thing. My son always called those poof balls, little poof balls, he called them. So this thing was just full of all kind of goodies. So I just got some of everything in here. And then, I just came back from a cruise. So that's why, I've been doing less stuff online because I've been busy. And then we were on a cruise. And I got COVID a few weeks ago. Then I got over that just in time for us to go on our cruise. And when we went to Miami, we went to this place called Wynwood Walls. And it's an area where they have a lot of graffiti and mural arts and stuff like that, and we're an art family. My husband loves art. So we went over there and we took this little buggy ride all through the community and saw that. And two of the big artists that were there, part of their trademark was like shark teeth and things like that. So on the cruise ship, I saw this book bag and this backpack, and I just fell in love with it. It reminded me, look at there, like the little shark teeth and stuff like that. It reminded me of the graffiti that we saw on the walls. And I was like, I gotta have that. So I got this. And there's like a little zipper part here. It's called Spray Ground. That's the name of it. So there's like a little zipper part here that I can put my cell phone or things in. And then you've got your handles in the back, but there's like a little zipper part here that I can unzip. And so now it fits over the trolley handle on my suitcase. So if I'm using it, like if I'm traveling, I can use it for that. Or I could just use it as an additional pocket back here. Two little Velcro pockets on the side so I can put my water bottle and things like that in there. And then, of course, I can put stuff in it. There's a pouch in there and all that kind of thing. So I'm just so excited. I've got some real goodies and I just had to share them with you. And I wanted to start with my new candle from Sophia. So if you guys are, and I'll put the link to their business in the description box, but this is Country Lux Company and countrylux.co, and they have a Shopify store. So I'll put the link in the description box. All right. So now let's see what people are saying. So Michelle says she's been at home for 23 years now, although she did have a website business for some of those years. And her and her hubby just celebrated their 39th anniversary on Saturday. So hooray for you too, Michelle. We had someone else that said they'd been married 50 years and someone else 32. I think Mamie was 32. So yeah, so we've had that going on as well. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight. And thank you for jumping in on the discussion because I just think it was an important discussion to have. And part of the concern for me was that the traditional wife, the trad wife, was getting so many negative videos about it. And I felt like we needed to have a discussion where we talked about the pros and the cons associated with that. And if you chose to go the traditional wife role, what were some of the supports that you can do? And it would be having a prenup agreement when you get married, or the two of you setting up some financial resources right from the beginning, like a SLAT, a spousal lifetime access trust or something like that, or some other way where you guys see a financial planner and just right from the beginning start putting aside some things for that person so that they don't feel like they're completely totally independent. So I thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you next time. And also I always forget to do this because I'm just, after we've been on for a while, I'm like just ready to go. But If you're feeling somewhat overwhelmed in your homemaking, you want to try to tame the chaos in your life, I have opened up some spaces on my calendar to do individual coaching, and I will put the link to that in the description box below as well. So she says, lovely Hall, glad to hear I'm in better health. Yes, much better health. And I thought this was a good topic to have. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye.